All right, well, it is time to get started. My name is David Brown, and I'd like to welcome you to Teknion's The Greatness of Tableau webinar series, with today's webinar featuring Teknion's own Tableau Zen Master, Josh Milligan, as he presents to us learning the new features of Tableau 9.3. Today's webinar is scheduled to run from noon until 1 p.m. Central Time, and we'll certainly honor your time today by ending the formal presentation before 1 p.m. However, for those of you who would like to remain on the webinar and ask Josh a few questions, we'll be keeping the webinar meeting open for 10 to 15 minutes after the presentation for a Q&A session with Josh. We invite as many of you as would like to stay for this interactive time together. Well, as we get started, I'd like to briefly tell you about Teknion Data Solutions. Teknion is a technology consulting firm specializing in business intelligence, data management, and advanced analytics. Now, a couple of reasons that business leaders typically engage Teknion are maybe they desire to implement self-service analytics platform because traditional analytics processes have just proven too slow. Or maybe they've invested in Tableau but simply don't quite know how to get the most out of it and roll it out successfully to the organization. Well, Teknion offers a full suite of consulting services including BI strategy, leadership, data integration, data visualization, data analytics, product and skills training, and custom application development. We augment our consulting by reselling leading-edge tools like Tableau, Warescape, and Alteryx to address our customers' most common business intelligence needs and offer cloud hosting services to make implementation fast, easy, and cost-effective. Teknion is a Tableau Gold Partner and a two-time finalist for Tableau Partner of the Year. Simply stated, we love data, we love Tableau, and we are passionate about helping our clients unlock the truth and insight hidden in their data using Tableau. That's what we do. Well, all right, let's get going with today's webinar. Please allow me to introduce our speaker, Joshua Milligan. Josh has been with Teknion for over 10 years as a data and Tableau consultant. Josh is a two-time Tableau Zen Master, which is the highest accolade granted by Tableau for excellence and engagement with Tableau. In case you are wondering, there are only 21 Zen Masters in the world. Josh was also designated a Tableau Social Ambassador in 2015 for his extensive involvement in the Tableau community. Additionally, Josh was the author of a book, Learning Tableau, which is available on Amazon today. Josh has been married to his wife, Kara, for 12 years and has 3 children, including his newest addition, Daniel, who was born just 3 months ago. Josh, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you, David. I'm excited to be here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And I'm really excited to show you the new features of Tableau 9.3. In fact, I'm enjoying Tableau 9.3 so much that I decided to ditch the PowerPoint today and do the entire presentation right out of Tableau. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's take a look at the new features. When I first started looking at Tableau 9.3, I was amazed at how many new features there really are. And so you'll see here all kinds of new features broken down. One of my colleagues helped me to see how they were broken down. And so we'll take a look at a lot of these features, and you'll see there are features related to server. There are just new features across the board for all the different products, especially desktop. Data integration has been a huge push for Tableau starting in version 8. They really started to work on how do you connect to data, how do you bring data together from multiple sources. There are a lot of really neat innovations that we'll look at here. Performance is something that you won't necessarily see, but it's something that you will experience. And so you'll be experiencing improved performance with 9.3, and it's going to be pretty amazing how fast things work. Tableau Online has some new features, and there are some new data layers. If you're visualizing data for Europe or India, you'll enjoy the new postal codes, and there's some new demographic layers. We're not going to have time to look in detail at every single feature in Tableau 9.3, but I did want to show them all to you here so that you can see them, so that you can understand how they're working. And and you'll be able to enjoy them as you start to use 9.3. But we will touch on quite a few of the features. So things like versioning in Tableau Server is a really big feature, something that's been asked for quite a while by the users, and Tableau listened, and they have now included versioning. Tooltips for views, you'll see that. You'll see persistent login. We won't necessarily look in detail at those, but you'll see them along the way. Moving totals and color for totals. We'll talk about how totals work and how Tableau 9.3 makes it a little bit easier to work with them. I'll definitely point out some of the new Mapbox support, which is really cool. Some forecasting, some other things along the way, and then we'll camp out here on unions for quite a while because I love the new feature of unions. We'll talk about what they are, how you can use them. We'll talk about all kinds of things with unions. Publishing and connecting is a great feature, and some new functions in the data grid that we'll take a look at as well. Let's go ahead and get started. I like the Mapbox feature so much that let me show you what you can do with Mapbox now. I've got a dashboard here that I created for my boss. Actually, I didn't create this dashboard. Someone else did. It's included in the Tableau samples, and it looks okay. But my boss said that the map really doesn't do a whole lot for him. He would like it to be a little bit fancier. So I went through all the different variations that Tableau gives here on the map, the background maps, map layers, and I tried different styles, and he didn't really like any of them. He said, "Can't you make it look a little bit prettier?" So I pulled up Mapbox. Mapbox is an online service that allows you to design your own background map layers. So if I log in here, I can design my own maps. I simply create a new style. I decide, if I want to use a template, and you'll notice there are a lot of different types of maps here. So maybe I'll select satellite with streets, and when I create it, it's going to bring up Mapbox Studio that allows me to customize how it looks. And you'll see it's a nice satellite view. As I zoom in on different layers, you'll see different things pop up. It's got some different labels for states and places and oceans and that sort of thing. It's got some boundaries for countries and states and that sort of thing. And all of this is something that I can customize. So I can go in to state labels. I could change the font. I could change the color. I may decide I don't even want them, so I just delete them. Same thing with place labels. I might click on that and just saying let's delete those place labels. And you'll see Mapbox there is redrawing it however I customize it. Then I might decide something like roads. Those are kind of nice, but maybe I'll get rid of those. And country labels are nice. They're showing up, but maybe I want them to pop out a little bit more, so I'll adjust the color, maybe a nice bright green. And you'll see all of the country labels are now bright green. Once I have a map and I've customized it exactly the way that I want it, all I have to do is click Publish in Mapbox, publish it again. Let's see what happened here. Unable to save. We'll try one more time. Publish. Maybe we'll publish it as something new. All right, and it's saved my map. So now I'm going to go back, take a look at all of my different styles. And there it is. So now if I click on it, it will tell me how I can use it. Let's share and use. And you'll notice Mapbox even knows that Tableau is one of the premier applications that uses Mapbox. And so all I have to do is take this URL that it gives me, copy that, and back in Tableau, I can go to Map, Background Maps, and Map Services, and I can add Mapbox Maps as a service. And this was here in previous versions, but it was the classic Mapbox. So I had to create a style and an API access token and all kinds of things that weren't quite as easy to use. But the new Mapbox GL that has all kinds of really cool features, all I have to do is paste that, or give it a name, and then paste the URL, and it fills out the rest for me. I say OK, and you'll notice Mapbox is now in Tableau. It is using that as the background to my map. So all kinds of really cool things that I could do with Mapbox to customize a map and then use it right in Tableau. And the great thing is that Mapbox, it's a service, and there is a free version of it. It is limited a little bit on the number of views that you can have of the maps. But if you really like it and you want to pay for it, you can use it as a paid service as well. So now that I have the dashboard and my boss is happy, he likes seeing this new map, it really does something for him, I'm ready to publish this to Tableau Server and get it out there so that he can start using it. Now you'll notice the persistent sign-in, I am already signed in to the Tableau Server that I like. I can sign out if I want and sign into another server, but it will keep me signed in. Even if I close and reopen Tableau, it keeps me signed in, which is great. So I'm ready to publish this workbook. There it is, timed out. We'll try again, sign in. And we'll try publishing again. And I look at this, and I don't want to publish every tab since this is my presentation. I just want to publish just that Mapbox versioning sheet that I've got, and I'll leave all the other options. I will go ahead and publish that. It tells me that it's already there. Do I want to overwrite it? I say yes, of course. And as soon as I click yes, I remember that that is not at all what I wanted to do. In fact, the version that I had out there had many more dashboards than just this one. Unfortunately, I don't have a local copy of it, and I just overwrote it on server. So in previous versions of Tableau, that would have been a huge problem because I would have just lost all my work. But now what I can do is I can go into Tableau Server, and I see my new dashboard there. We'll refresh, and it's showing up right there. Unfortunately, it only has just the one tab. You'll notice the tooltip as I hover over, and it's got some usage details. That's new in Tableau 9.3. But the really nice new feature that I like is this one here. I select the workbook that I'm interested in, and under Actions, I find Revision History. And when I click that, that shows me every revision that I've made. Every time I've published, Tableau Server has saved a copy of the workbook, and it allows me to get a copy back. So if I remember that a couple days ago, I had the one that I wanted, so maybe I want to go all the way back to April 26th, I can download that revision, and there it is. Let me open up that folder and open it up again in Tableau. So there's the new one, but here comes the one I just downloaded. And when it opens, I find that I have a previous version. I have the version that had the pre-Mapbox map, but it's also got all of my previous dashboards that I wanted to keep and didn't want to overwrite. So now I may have a little bit of work to go back and redo the Mapbox map, or I could maybe copy and paste sheets. I could come back here and grab the one that I wanted, paste it into the other workbook, and publish it up. So there may be a little bit of work to restore it exactly the way that I want it, but I didn't lose hours and hours of work, and I'm able to go back to the way that I want it. So that's a feature that I love. Another feature that, that Tableau has introduced is this idea of totals. So I'm just going to start a blank workbook here. And in previous versions, I didn't have a whole lot of control over how totals showed or what they did with color. I had a little bit of control over how I wanted them to aggregate, but they always show up at the bottom. They always show up at the right. So if I start to build this out, let's remove the totals so that they don't show up. And let's just take a look at maybe customer segment and category and maybe ship mode. And maybe what I want to do is I want to create a heat map of sales. So if I take sales and drop that on text to start with, I can use show me to get a nice heat map. And what I love about heat maps is that the color coding allows me to see the patterns. It allows me to see the hot spots, maybe some of the cool spots, things that I want to pay attention to. Then I might be interested in bringing out those grand totals. So if I switch over to analytics and bring totals out, I can look at the column and the row grand totals. And in previous versions of Tableau, as soon as I did that, and I'm looking at this heat map view, this value here, this 2 million, the overall grand total, that one would be dark blue, and maybe some of the other grand totals would be different shades of blue, but almost everything else in the view would be a gray color. Why? Because they're all totally washed out compared to the 2 million. The largest one is about 1/10 of that. But you'll notice in 9.3, the totals, by default, don't take on the color. So I've retained my ability to see hotspots within the data to be able to see things that I want to pay attention to, and the grand totals didn't wash it out. Now, if I want, I can go and change that. So if I go here to my color legend and use the edit option, you'll notice there is a checkbox here for include totals. And if I apply that, that's how it used to look in previous versions by default. The overall grand total, dark blue, everything else, very light blue, very little variation. Now there are times when you may want that behavior, so I'm really happy that the Tableau developers allowed me to include totals as an option, but I'm also very happy that it is not the default. So I might want to undo that so that I can get back to the non-color grand totals. The other thing that I might want to do with a grand total is not necessarily show it at the bottom or not necessarily show it at the right. There are times that you want them to be at the top or at the left. Well, previous versions didn't give you that flexibility, but now it's fairly easy. Just click the grand total, right-click and say row totals to left. Right-click this grand total and say column totals to top. So you have a lot of flexibility with how you work with totals in Tableau. Another feature that I really like in Desktop is the idea that I can do forecasting on integers. And you may wonder, why is that such a big deal? Well, let's say that I wanted to do a forecast on sales. So I'm looking at sales, and a lot of times we'll look at sales over time. If I have a date in my data, that's pretty easy to use. And I can look at the date, and I can do that by month or by quarter or by year. And then I can turn on forecasting, and previous versions of Tableau had no problem turning on forecasting for a date. But let's say that my data didn't have a date, and all I had was an integer. Maybe it was the number of hours or the number of minutes or maybe just the number of days, but it wasn't specifically a date. So I was able to draw a line chart like this. But then, if I went to go create a forecast, either the option would be grayed out, or if I tried to use it, Tableau would give me an error message saying, forecasts are only available for dates. Well, now, no problem. I can turn on a forecast using an integer. And I have full control over that forecast model, so I can just right-click and say forecast, forecast options. And just like the date, now Tableau treats this as periods, and you'll notice I have full control to specify how many periods I want the forecast. If I want to ignore previous periods, I can do that or not. And I can adjust the forecast model however I want. So I could even do a custom forecast model and give it some trend, give it some seasonality, and have a really nice forecast, even if I don't have a date in the data. All right, so Mapbox and versioning and totals and forecasting on integers, all great features. But now we come to my all-time favorite feature in Tableau 9.3. My fellow Tableau community members, it is my privilege to give you the State of the Unions. And it is my privilege to announce to you that the State of the Unions is strong. Now, you may have questions about unions. You may wonder, what are they? How do they work? And when should you use a union? Well, we'll take a look. First of all, what is a union? Well, specifically, a union is the idea that I may have data that is broken down into different tables or different files, and all of these tables of data have basically the same structure, maybe the same columns, but they're all spread out. So these may be different files in a directory. These may be different sheets in an Excel workbook. We'll talk about all the different ways that that might work. But the idea of a union is that I want to take one table and add the rows of another table and add the rows of another table until I get to one giant table that has the same columns as all the subtables, and it just has all of the rows. And that gives me a data source that I can use in Tableau to do the data visualization that I'd like to do. So when do you see this happen? Well, let me give you an example. Let's say that you've got this guy in your office. We'll call him Peter. And every month, Peter's job is to create a report. So he creates a file. And so every report, you'll notice in January, he created 2016-01.csv. In February, it was 2016-02.csv. And every month, he creates a new file for that month's data. Now, it might be CSV, it might be TXT. The idea is that it's some kind of a text file that Tableau can read. The extension doesn't really matter. It could even be .tps, as long as it is a file that Tableau can read. And the other key is that they all have to be in the same directory. And it doesn't have to be a text file. So this also works with Excel. So imagine that you have an Excel sheet that has multiple tabs, and each tab maybe is a different month or a different subset of the data. Here it's a different region of data. So that's one possibility. Another possibility is that Peter may take the Excel sheet, and in one sheet he creates a bunch of subtables. That used to be really messy to work with, but we'll take a look at how we can work with unions to get around some of this messy data. Let's take a look at a real-world example. And of course, by real world, what I mean is Star Wars. So if I've got an Excel sheet here, I've got 3 tabs, 3 sheets in my Excel workbook, originals, prequels, and sequels. You'll notice that there's just one table per sheet, and each table has the same columns. So name, occupation, income, preference, they're all the same columns, same table. And if I've got an Excel sheet like this, what I used to have to do in Tableau was come up with some kind of a manual process. So maybe copy and paste all into one sheet or all into one file. And it was kind of difficult, and then as the data changed, I'd have to do it again and again, and it just wasn't all that much fun. But now, Tableau makes it very easy. So how do I deal with it now? Well, I'm going to connect to that Excel file, new data source, Excel, find that file, and once Tableau reads that file, you'll notice those three tabs, those three sheets in Excel show up as different tables. And I also have this new option here called New Union. And that's exactly what I want to do, is I want to create a union. So I could use New Union, or another way to create a union is just to start with one table and then take another table and drag that in. Now if I drag it over here somewhere, notice it's going to create a join. Well, a join is not what I want. A join gives me more columns. I don't want more columns, I want more rows. So I'm going to remove that. And instead, when I drag it in, I just need to get it close enough to where this new drop zone pops up that says drag table to union. So if I drop it there, notice the Tableau now, in this name column, it had the 3 rows from the original sheet, and now it has the 3 new rows from the next sheet. And if I drop sequels in there, I get 3 more rows of data. Now, Tableau did add a couple of columns to my data source. One is called sheet, and the other is called table name. And these are actually really nice, because this tells me what sheet it came from in the Excel document. It also tells me what table it came from. Now, since there was only one table in each sheet, the table name in this case is the same as sheet, but if there had been subtables or something like that, then the table name might have been different. So I've got my new union, and now I'm ready to come down here and we can actually use this data source. So I've got my data source, and now I can start to visualize it all here in Tableau, and I can start to see the data. And it makes it really nice, really easy, very little manual steps involved for creating that union. Much different than it used to be. And the other great thing is that the sheet and the table name fields are right here, and they are available to use in my visualizations or as filters or however I want. In fact, I can even create calculated fields based on these. So if each sheet was a different date, well, I could actually use that as a date in the data. Or I can rename the field so that I know what it really is, and that will carry through in my data source. And once I have a nice data source, whether it's built on a union or not, what I may want to do with that data source is publish it to Tableau Server so that it is available for anyone who wants to use it. So, just like previous versions, I right-click and say Publish to Server. And you'll notice a nice new clean interface here on my Publish dialog. But the other really nice thing is down here at the bottom, this last checkbox, Update Workbook to use the published data source. One thing that was kind of frustrating in previous versions is as soon as I published a data source, if I wanted to use that published data source, I had to go through several steps. I had to connect to Tableau Server again. I had to connect to that Tableau data source, Tableau Server data source, and then I had to replace it in my workbook so that all my visualizations would use it. And that might have broken some things along the way in terms of colors and default formats and that sort of thing. But now, one checkbox that's already checked for me, and when I publish, and it says it did it successfully, notice that it is now using that as a Tableau Server data source. And so in fact, if I edit that data source, it is no longer that union of Excel files. It is pointing straight to that data source on Tableau Server. And so that's great because I didn't have to go through all that manual process. I can use that data source right here. But it's also great that it's an option because there are times when I may want to publish a data source but keep it as a local connection. All right, so that's publishing, and we've seen an example of a union, but I want to show you one more example of a union. In fact, let's take a look at an example that is fairly complex. So here is an Excel sheet an Excel workbook, and the first sheet has different subtables. So I've got 4 different regions, all in different tables, and each one has a state and a sales goal, and so those are all the same. And then I've got multiple tabs here. So central, looks like that would go along with the central region, and it again has all the states, but it has some other measures, number of customers, number of orders, profit, sales, and as I look through, each one is the same structure as that, just a different set of states. So 4 tabs, one way, another tab that has 4 tables. And if you think about how you would have connected to this data in Tableau previously, it would have been kind of a mess. But now, Tableau makes it fairly easy. So I'm going to take that file and just drop it right here on Tableau to start the connection. And you see that Tableau read all of those different tabs. It read the sales goal tab, and it read each tab of region specific data. And so let's think about how we might want to connect to this data. If I take sales goals and start with that, notice that what Tableau did was that it just read that sheet, and it found the 4 tables, but it didn't do anything with them right off. So each row is just a row in that sheet, and I can see my tables. There's central, there's east, south, and west, but that is not at all how we want to see the data. Well, the nice thing in Tableau is the data interpreter. I just turn it on, and Tableau cleans it up. It now has found central state, central sales goal, east state, east sales goal. But I still have a row of data here that maybe has multiple states. That's not even how I want to see it at all either. But what it also did was it found those subtables, and it has shown them to me over here on the left. So if I remove this, what I can do now is create a new union of those subtables. So this time I'm going to use that new union feature. That allows me to give it a name. And I can just drag all the tables that I want into this union. So I grab all of those subtables, drag them and drop them into this new union, and say OK. And now I have a row for each state. In fact, if I look over here, I see I have 49 rows of data. So there's 1 state that's missing, but 49 rows, that's really nice. And I've got all the states that I might want. And now the question is what do I do with my other states, or my other sheets in Tableau? Well, what I can do is I could take them and just add them to the union, but that's not really what I want, because now I've got 62 rows of data, and really I just would like 1 row of data per state. So let's edit that union. I can use the drop down and say customize, take out central. We don't want to do that. And instead, what I can do is I can actually create another union with those sheets, drag those in, say OK, and look at what Tableau does. Tableau has joined one union with another union. So I can use unions and joins. I can do all kinds of things to make it really easy. And notice I have 49 rows of data, so 1 row per state, and it is joined where the states are equal. And so I have Wisconsin here, I have Wisconsin here, but this is great because now I have my sales goal in the same row of data that I have my other measures. And if I go to Tableau, and I take a look at this data connection, it's got everything that I need, and in exactly the right way that I need it. So I can look at my state, I can look at my sales goal, and I could even take sales here, just click on it and show me, and maybe if I want to do a bullet graph, it makes it very easy, except that I always do it in the wrong order. So notice that my bar is the sales goal and the little tick mark is the sales. That's not what I want. So I right-click the axis and swap reference line fields. And now I can see which states are meeting their sales goals and which ones aren't. And Tableau made that very easy to deal with the complexity of the data there in Excel. So unions are one of my all-time favorite features in Tableau 9.3. One other feature that I'll show you real quick. Notice down here in the lower right, how many of you have ever looked at this? So you've got the normal tab view. That's what I always look at. But there's a film strip view, which allows you to see all of the thumbnails of all of your sheets. There's even this sheet sorter view. And when you look at this, you can see thumbnails of all of your views. So a really minor thing, but in previous versions, I had no control here over assigning color to these sheets. But now I can assign color right here in the sheet sorter. So if I want to make those blue, because they deal with the unions, if I want to, well, not that one, I'll make that one red and maybe make some of these others green. But I love to use color coding. A lot of times I'll use it when I create a dashboard and I want to color code all the sheets that go with that dashboard, or I'm trying to color code maybe a certain subject area and then other dashboards or sheets that deal with a different subject area. So I love color coding, and I love the fact that now I can do it here in the sheet sorter. I'm going to switch back to the tab view, and let's take a look at where we've been. We've looked at versioning in Tableau Server. We've looked at tooltips on the view. We've looked at the totals in Mapbox and unions. You haven't seen it, but all along we've been experiencing improved performance. And then there are all of these other features that we haven't even had time to deal with. So you're going to have fun with Tableau 9.3. You're going to have a great time exploring these new features, understanding them, and using them as they make your life a lot easier.
Josh, that was awesome. Thank you for sharing your insight on Tableau 9.3 with us today. It's incredible to see how Tableau continues to improve and expand their products. Well, as you have seen and heard, Tableau 9.3 offers greatly enhanced functionality to you and your organization that you'll definitely want to take full advantage of moving forward in your mission to help your firm see and understand their data, which is honestly our common mission together. As a Tableau Gold partner, Teknion is uniquely equipped to help you succeed in this mission, as we have a team of experienced consultants who can help you, number one, get the data right. Successful data visualization always begins with making sure the data is accessible, trusted, and organized to maximize Tableau's performance. Teknion offers such services as business intelligence readiness assessments to help you understand and overcome the data challenges existing in your organization. Or maybe the need in the organization exists to create a single source of truth. Teknion possesses the tools and expertise to build a data warehouse using data warehouse automation, ultimately delivering an enterprise data solution that is better, completed faster, and built at a lower cost than traditional data warehouses. You know, then again, maybe your biggest challenge and desire today is to create more momentum and traction with Tableau in your organization. Well, Teknion offers a wide array of Tableau training and mentoring options, including customized training utilizing a curriculum from Josh Milligan's book, Learning Tableau. As the 2015 finalist for Tableau Training Partner of the Year, Teknion is uniquely prepared to help you and your team increase your Tableau capabilities. Additionally, Teknion consultants like Josh can help you and your team with Tableau dashboard design and development, helping you create quick wins in your organization with visualizations that not only foster dynamic interaction with data, but effectively and creatively tell the story the data is trying to tell. Regardless of your data or visualization need, Teknion's passionate about helping your organization unlock the truth hidden in your data. It's simply why we exist. So if you believe Teknion may be able to assist you in the areas of getting your data or visualization right, you can easily reach us via email at events@teknionusa.com or by calling us at 214-614-7600, and you'll notice the contact information is on your screen. Well, thank you for investing your time with us today to listen to Josh Milligan's webinar on learning the new features in Tableau 9.3. We'll absolutely keep you informed and invited to future webinar events. Now, for those of you that need to get back to your day, thank you again for joining us. But for any that would like to remain and interact with Josh in a Q&A session, we'd be delighted to begin that now. We've already received a number of questions that were typed in during the webinar, so we'll start with a couple of those, but by all means, please feel free to type in your questions to Josh now. So Josh, here's a question we might start with. Do all my fields need to line up for the union? And what happens if they don't? Does casing matter?
Oh, sure. So that's a great question. In fact, let me open up an Excel sheet here. So this is very similar to the one that we looked at before, but this one has some issues with it. So before we saw an Excel workbook where every sheet had all the same columns for every table. Well, that's best case scenario, right? Because sometimes that doesn't happen. And here, it didn't happen either. So we've got name, occupation, income, preference, age. But if I flip to the next section here, I've got name, job, income, preference, no age. And here, again, name, job, income, preference. And you'll notice job here, capitalized, job here, not capitalized. So let's take a look at what happens when I try to open this in Tableau. So again, I'll just drag and drop the file to start that connection. And I can create that union a number of different ways, but I like to just grab one table and then maybe select all the others and drag and drop those onto that union right there. So here we definitely didn't have things that lined up, but the great thing is that Tableau allows you that kind of flexibility. So if you're used to unions in other tools or in SQL, you know that things have to line up exactly, and they even have to be the exact same data type. And Tableau makes it a lot easier because it will find the things that do match, and it finds them based on name. So here, name was a column that appeared in every data source, and it gets filled out. But occupation was one that didn't. So here's occupation, and then job, and job again. So I just held down on Control as I selected all of those, and you'll notice what it did. It found the values where they existed, but where they didn't, it gives you a null. And then it found the values where they existed for this column, and where it didn't, it gives you a null. Well, the nice thing that Tableau has done is right here in the data window then, I just use the drop down for one of these fields, and there are different options here, and one of the new options is merge mismatched fields. So if I click on that, notice that Tableau then takes all of those fields and sort of mashes them together. And what it's doing, if you're familiar with like a coalesce statement in SQL, it's just going field by field by field until it finds the first non-null value, and that's what it takes. But as long as you only had one place where it was not null, then you'll get what you want, and you can come in here and rename it as desired. The only thing that I've run into is that I don't think you can use. No, actually, it's fine. I thought maybe you couldn't use a name that was already used, but it seems fine here. And you can also deal with other issues that you might have too. So age was a column that didn't exist in a couple of others. So if you decide that's not useful then because it doesn't exist throughout the entire data set, just click hide, and it's gone. All right, so yeah, I'm looking through the list here. There's another question. If you use the previous versions and that workbook was based on a live connection to an online database, will it show the results on that date or just the format? And then it cuts off. I don't see the rest of the question there. So let me see if I understand it. So a previous version, so you revert back to a previous version, and it was based on a live connection to the database. So yes, what Tableau is doing is it is saving a copy of just the workbook and not the data itself. If it does have an extract, I believe it does save a copy of that extract if it's packaged in the workbook. But if not, if it's a live connection, then it's going to use that live connection, and whatever the data is at that point in time is what you'll see. So it's just saving the visualizations and all the structure around that, and not the data itself. All right. Let's see, another question says, when using the new unions function, will Tableau notice carriage returns or extra spaces? Will it consider these as different columns? So if you have name and a namespace. So yeah, I think that would be the same thing as if the capitalization changed or the name of the field changed. Name and namespace would be two different fields, but you could merge them together like what you saw before. What if you need to modify the published data source on the server? So that's a great question. So Tableau 9.3 does not have the option necessarily with the version history to modify the data source, but I believe, and I haven't tested it out in the 10 beta, but I believe that that's one of the things that they have announced is coming, is the ability to even revert on data sources that have been published. How do you go back to the original mapping? Marie asked. All right, so yeah, let me go back to that dashboard, and if I want to go back to the original mapping, so I've switched it to Mapbox and I don't want to use that anymore, just on the menu, background maps, if I switch that back to Tableau, then I'm back to my original map. So good question. When will webinars be available online? So assuming that everything went well with the recording today, we'll definitely get that up on YouTube, hopefully within the next week or so, and we'll send out an email to let you know when that's up. All right, in coloring a table, is there a way to set a threshold for coloring? I.e. sales greater than 100,000 is green, 90 to 100,000 is yellow. That's more specific than a heat map. Sure. So I can definitely show that quickly here. So on my totals, if I wanted to, what I could do is it gets a little bit interesting. So I create a calculated field, and I'm not going to be able to use my sum sales here, at least not easily. I might be able to use a color palette that would work, but the way that I like to do it is just to set up my logic here, and it's just going to be exactly what you described. So if my sum of sales is greater than 100,000, then green. Else if the sum of sales is greater than 50,000, then yellow, and otherwise red. Now what makes this a little bit tricky is that if I take that color and I place that on color, well, a couple things get tricky about that. You'll notice here, why don't I have any? Oh, well, first of all, green should be green, yellow should be yellow. We don't have any red, I guess, although, yeah, we should have red. What's going on? Oh, 5,000, not 50,000. All right, so now we've got our red. I'll edit that one, make it red. So it got a little bit tricky here. What I could potentially do is increase the size of those squares. That might work a little bit, but you'll notice the squares, if they're that big, that the way that it determines where you're hovering over, that's a little bit harder. So instead of squares, what I like to do is switch it to a bar, and then just make the bar draw all the way across. And the way that I can do that is just by creating a calculated field, or even here an ad hoc calculation where I just double click and I just say maybe min 1.0, that just means that I'll get a 1.0 for everything. And notice that stretches the bar from 0 to 1.0. And if I edit the axis, I can actually fix that here to 1 at the end. And let's adjust the size a little bit. Yeah, that one's fine, but now I need the label to show up on top. Hello, let's set the alignment. Oh, that's very interesting. Oh, I know why. Let's allow it to overlap and maybe cut it down. So we've got a little bit here, interesting thing going on with just the size of the label in Tableau, thinking that it shouldn't draw it, but we'll let it draw it. And then, after I've got it set up the way that I want, I cannot show that header for the axis because I don't really care about that axis. But now I've got a nice heat map, a little bit more difficult to set up, but not too terribly bad. All right, and then, oh, so yeah, another question about version 10 and cross-database joins. Do you know if it will work with two different data sources that I have been published to a server? The most recent that I've heard on that, so will it work with published Tableau connections? I don't believe it's in the beta right now. I think it's something that Tableau may be working on, but I don't know specifically. Other than I don't believe it's in the beta. Is the union a union all or a union? Great question, but I don't actually know the answer right off. I believe it's a union all would be my guess, but I don't actually know. I'll have to test that. And then one more question here, is there a way of connecting to two different databases from two different Tableau servers? Tried this in 9.0 and it didn't work. No, I don't believe that's possible right now. So two different Tableau servers is not really supported at this point. Can we do a custom SQL still? Yes. So with most data sources, absolutely. With an Excel data source, if I look at that, nope, not that one. Edit data source. If I was to go into this one and let's remove that. A lot of times what I would like to do is be able to come down here and say convert to custom SQL. I can't do that with the Excel connection because it is using Tableau's own connectivity to Excel, which is not supportive of custom SQL. But if I were to edit the connection and maybe even start a new connection, new data source, Excel. So when I start a new connection, oops, too fast. New data source, Excel. Click on the file once, and now under Open, I say Open with Legacy Connection. So the legacy uses the Microsoft Jet driver. And here, now with a legacy connection, I should be able to say convert to custom SQL. And I get a nice SQL statement that reads from the Excel file. What I will lose, though, is a lot of the options. So I can't union, for example, here, at least with this. I could union with a custom SQL. So that was always an option before. But the legacy connections are only available on Windows. They will not work with Mac, and you do lose some other functionality, some other calculation functions, and some other things that don't work as well with the legacy connection. And then another question, any chance to show subtotals on top and grand totals on the bottom at the same time? I'll let you play with that because I don't think so, but I could be wrong, so I'll let you look at that.
All right. Well, thank you so much to everyone who attended today's webinar. We're really appreciative that you invested the time. We'll absolutely be doing another Greatness of Tableau webinar in May, and we'll make sure you're informed and invited. So thanks so much. Everyone have a great day.